Hello, Eric Walczykowski here, CEO of Bespoke Partners and host of Tailored Talent. Today, I'm joined by Rob Greenhalgh from Summit Leadership. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Rob, over the last couple of years, you see Summit Leadership everywhere in private equity. And so would love to just kind of get your background a little bit and how it came to be that you joined up at Summit Leadership.
Yeah. Well, thanks first of all for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here, and I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. I've been at Summit Leadership for about 6 years, and the firm all in is going on 11 years this year. So joined, a little bit more than halfway through, or a little bit less than halfway through the firm. My background is in organizational psychology and business, and the work that we do at Summit is really the intersection between that. Funny story of how I joined Summit. Dan Hawkins, our founder, was actually the CHRO at a private equity owned company in Nashville called Asurion. And while he and I missed each other by about 6 months, I heard a lot about Dan when I arrived there. And through some mutual connections, I was introduced to Dan. And after spending 4 years at Asurion, I was looking to go back to San Francisco where my family was, and Summit was expanding to the West Coast. And 6 years later, here I am with Summit still.
No, fantastic. So give me a little flavor of the typical projects that you work on.
Yeah. So Summit Leadership Partners is a leadership and advisory firm specifically focused on private equity. While not all of our business is private equity, about 80% of it is. And that's really where we like to play. It's kind of two lenses that I think about the work that we do. One is across the investment lifecycle of a private equity owned company. So we do everything from, again, all through a leadership and organization lens, starting with due diligence, post-transaction work. And then when we think about the kinds of challenges that private equity or portfolio companies are trying to solve along the investment cycle, do we have the right talent? Do we have the right organizational structure? How do we develop our leadership within? Ultimately, the headline problem that we're trying to solve is how can we help these portfolio companies scale as they execute their value creation plan? And so it's a combination of lots of talent assessment, executive coaching, team coaching, organizational assessments, all the way through preparing companies for exit.
No, fantastic. Well, I'm a big believer in organizational development, the talent consulting, the work that you've done. And in fact, at every company that I have run, I've actually brought in a third-party group to help with the leadership team, everything from assessment to how we work well together and really get everybody on the same page heading towards that value creation strategy. That said, one of the things I've noticed in the industry is this, you get a lot of very smart people and the process against, hey, I got to get stuff done quickly. And I think you understand where I'm getting at, where you got a lot of people that want to spend weeks and months studying a problem. And I'm not talking about Summit, because actually I think you guys got brilliant. Hey, we got a problem to solve here. So yes, we are smart. We don't need to tell you how smart we are. Let's get to the root of what you need to do. But tell me a little bit about how you've constructed that and what you've seen in the industry.
Yeah, it's a great question. And so one of the things that I really love about Summit, and I think one of our differentiators, is that we really take a holistic view of organizational performance. You think about the old adage, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And, oftentimes when people hear about Summit or firms like ours, they go immediately to the talent piece of it. And obviously talent's really, really important. But we actually take a very holistic approach to how we look at scaling organizations. And so at the center of it, kind of where you were going, is strategy alignment or VCP alignment. Like, do we know where our North Star is? And most importantly, because a lot of these, we work a lot in growth equity, they're high growth companies. And so there's going to be a lot of evolution and change. And are we clear how executing that strategy is going to impact the talent and capability that we need, the leadership that we need? Then you kind of move away and you say, okay, do we have the right structure? Are we organized in the right way to execute against this value creation plan? And then you go over from there, you say, okay, we're organized the right way and we've got the right talent. What does the operating model look like? What's our operating rhythm? How are decisions getting made? How aligned are we? How do we collaborate? How do we give feedback? And then the underpinning of it all is the culture. And I think it was Peter Drucker who said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I'm a firm believer in that. And sometimes when we have this culture conversation, people think about it in very kind of aspirational or nice to have terms. I'm of the firm belief that culture really drives results. Because at the end of the day, what a culture is a set of behaviors. And if you're doing the right behaviors and they're propelling you towards where you want to go, you're going to be able to get there a lot more quickly and a lot more efficiently. So I'm a big believer that it's not a nice to have, it's a have to have.
Absolutely. And one of the things I've noticed over the years with these exercises is a lot of time it manifests itself in an offsite. And then you get back to your job and it's wah, wah, wah. And my whole thing on this is what I've always done is I've actually engaged firms over a multi-year situation where you do the offsite, you get ongoing coaching, you get back together as a group and go through that. But talk to me a little bit about that, because I'm sure you see this a lot where people say, hey, come facilitate our offsite. And talk to me about the effectiveness and what you do to make sure that actually the work that gets done at the offsite gets implemented.
Yeah, I think those kinds of engagements are really, really important for a number of different reasons. I think we all know the stories of a group of very talented individuals who don't work effectively together, and how that goes in terms of performance. And so, when we look at leadership teams, I mean, the first question we're always asking is like, do we have the right CEO to execute this value creation plan, and do we have the right management team? And sometimes that's where, with some of our clients, the analysis stops. And so we're on the same page as you. We're always pushing to say, hey, it's not enough to just have the right leaders in place. We got to make sure, one, that they're aligned. We go back to that kind of model I was walking through. It really comes down to how aligned is this management team in terms of where we're going to focus our time, our priorities. And I will say what I've learned, I do a fair amount of team coaching and these, team facilitation. And one of the things that I've noticed over the 6 years I've been at Summit is the bigger challenge sometimes is not getting alignment around the leadership team table, but actually driving that alignment down into the organization where the work really gets done. And when as part of our organizational work, we have a partnership with a company called Entreme, and it's an organizational health survey designed specifically for private equity. It's a great tool that we use, and it's really interesting in some engagements we have where we have a leadership team that's everyone has arms around each other. We're aligned. We're on the same page. And then we'll deploy the survey into the organization, and we'll find out there's not as much alignment lower in the organization. And that tells us there's a disconnect happening there. To your question specifically, a really important piece of work that we do is what we call team coaching. And so we're not big fans of and I think you were kind of saying the same thing, one and done offsites, because while they feel really good and people enjoy the experience, it's really around how do we continue developing our capabilities as a leadership team? How do we give each other feedback when things are not working? As the company continues to evolve forward, how do we come back and look at, hey, 6 months ago these were our opportunities. Now there's a new set of opportunities in terms of how we work together. So I'm in agreement with you. I'm a big fan of not one and dones, but 6 months, 12 month team coaching engagements.
And I've just found those team coaching engagements so important. And I actually, as the CEO, participate in them as well as we're going through, and we're talking about individual members of the team, never breaking confidence of what someone's talking to their coach about, but getting the idea, which is, hey, so-and-so might be doing this. You might want to double down on, what we're working on here, attention to detail, communication for results, whatever that might be. And I just find that team coaching so important. You hit on something though that I think is really important that talks about that leadership development, and it's driving that alignment down in the organization. What are some of the keys to doing that?
It's something I'm actually personally passionate about. I've been working with a number of teams in the last couple of years to help them. Kind of a few things I've observed, and I'm talking specifically probably like middle market companies and lower middle market companies in particular, but I think it extends beyond those as well, where I'll find that there is a disconnect, even having alignment around strategy. And I do a lot of work with my clients around establishing. We use OKRs, but there's OKRs, MBOs. Choose the framework you want, and it's making sure that the objectives for the enterprise are well articulated, and then each functional area, revenue, finance, whatever part of the organization, maps their objectives to those corporate objectives, and that there's alignment around the leadership team about what everyone is going to be focused on. And then the key is, how do you drive that down in terms of like cascading goals? And sometimes you hear like cascading goals and it sounds like just HR talk. I think there's actually a lot of value, and it doesn't happen overnight, but if there's some level of discipline about cascading down key objectives, benefits are twofold. One, you have greater alignment, but also for team members that are lower in the organization, they have a clearer line of sight of how their work is actually contributing to the bigger mission. And that's actually really engaging and really inspiring for many folks.
Rob, this was a wealth of information. I truly enjoyed our conversation, and candidly, if you're in the Bay at some point, would love to get together with you and continue this. But
if you're in the Bay Area, yeah, my family's from there, so I'll be there in a few weeks actually.
Fantastic. Love to connect in person. But thanks for joining today, and thanks for being a great partner at Summit. The work you do is very valuable to our ecosystem, and look forward to doing more of it together.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and really appreciate the collaboration as well. So thank you, and we'll talk soon.